What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm your host, Brad, joined by my co-host, Micah.
Hey.
And Carrie.
What's up?
So, look, we had a deluge of news last week. Much less news this week. But that's good because, Civilization 7 comes out. It's actually out now as we're recording this. They released it a couple hours early. But because of just all of, as I was telling Carrie before the show, just because of all of this in the world around us these days, in the US at least, I decided to treat myself and pay an extra $30 to get the deluxe edition of Civilization 7 so that I could start playing it last Thursday. And I've played a lot of Civilization 7 over this weekend. Finished my whole first campaign. And am about halfway through my second campaign. Now, it was interesting. I'm gonna set the stage for this because it was an interesting week in Civland last week. Because the review embargo dropped on Monday, right? And so reviews came out. The sim content creator brigade was mostly positive about the game. Like, they had a few things that they did not like, but for the most part they were pretty happy. Critical reviews were all over the place. Like I don't think I've seen a big game come out that had such polarizing reviews on opposite end of the spectrum. And it wasn't like there were one or two outliers, right? And everyone else was kind of in line. Like, there was a third of the crew, a third of the press was like, this game sucks. A third of the press was like, this is fucking awesome. And a third was like, pretty good, but has some issues, right? Which I think is good, by the way. Like, I think we should have more games that have more all over the map impressions, because that usually means the developer is trying some shit that really works for some people and really doesn't work for some people. So, but regardless, so the game comes out, it releases on Steam for the early access, so these are the people that had to pay extra to get it. And the news story becomes, holy shit, it's got mostly negative reviews, or right now I think it's up to mixed reviews on Steam. And I went on there to see, all right, what are people complaining about? Because the biggest complaint leading up to launch was the user interface, right? In the game. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I actually talk about the game itself. So that was one of the gripes. And that was pretty much the big gripe among the content creators as well. But the other gripe that people had is they're and this is on the Steam reviews, is the extra content that you get for this deluxe edition of Civ 7 is not worth the extra cost. And I just want to point out to those people, if that's why you're downvoting the game on Steam, if you're this extra stuff that I paid for is not worth it, you literally didn't have to. You knew what was going to be in it, and you chose to pay that money. You can't then say, oh, I don't think it's worth it. No, you literally did think it was worth it because you paid extra in order to get this stuff that you knew was available in this deluxe edition or the Founders Edition of the game that came out. But I digress, right? So I'm just okay, here's all the shit that people are playing. I gotta play it for myself. Let's see what's going on with this thing. So, for you guys don't know this, and a lot of the listeners probably don't either. So, ever since Civ 2, they've always the development studio at Firaxis has always kind of operated by what they call, I think they call it the rule of thirds is how they talk about it, where they take the previous Civ game and they take a third of the concepts in the game, keep them exactly the same from one game to the next. They take another third of stuff that worked well in the other game but could use some refinement or some retooling, and that's another third of the games. They bring stuff forward that needs improvements, and then the last third of the mechanics in the game are all brand new, right? A lot of controversy in this one because typically in a Civilization game, you have leaders that are linked with specific civilizations, and you pick those, you pick your leader civ at the beginning of the game, and that's the civ that you have for the entire long campaign across, 300 to 500 turns or however long it takes to play the game. So in Civ 7, the big change that they've made to the formula is the game now takes place in three very distinct ages. You have the Antiquity Age, Exploration, and then the Modern Age. In each age, you actually choose a new civilization that have different like abilities and different like special units and special districts and stuff like that. And but that you also choose your leader at the beginning of the game, and the leader is the thing that stays consistent throughout the entire game. So you have one leader, you're going to use 3 different civilizations. Also, leaders are uncoupled from civs in this one, so like you can use any leader with any civ. They do kind of point you in the direction of like historically accurate pairings, obviously. And also, I think the historically accurate pairings are also synergize generally well together compared to some of the other ones. And the civs that you can use in the when you transition to the new age is dependent on what you do during the game to allow yourself access to these other civs. So typically, like there'll be like 10 civilizations that you can pick from in a new age, but only some of them are unlocked. You'll always get the ones that are unlocked from like your leader that you play as, because they always have access to certain ones. You always get access to progression from the civilizations from the civilization you chose, because they'll always have access to certain ones. But then, based on other things you do, you might get access to some other civs as well that you can then select and go forward with. So that's like I said, that is interesting. And that was the biggest, like, people were like, oh, I don't know what this is going to be like, because another 4X game called Humankind did this a couple of years ago. But in Humankind, the change was purely mechanical, right? Like, literally every civilization came with some kind of a bonus to one of the statistics in the game, right? And as you transition through the ages in Humankind, you could pick whichever one you wanted to, and you were literally just picking the bonus. You weren't really picking the civ. One civilization at least has a little bit more determination behind it, and like it's a little bit more. It makes more sense logically with a lot of the choices that you have, right? And I actually really like this mechanic, because games of Civ, especially when you get to like the late mid game and the like the end game in Civ, can really drag on quite a bit. And what the ages do is they almost act as like a soft reset when you're playing the game. So like when you're playing Civ, like as you progress through an age, like the amount of decisions that you're making and the things that you're managing like increases linearly, because obviously you get more stuff, you have more units, you have more things that you have to command. And then when the age transition happens, it kind of brings it all back down again to not quite to zero. Like it's not like you're wiping the board and starting fresh. Like you are moving stuff from one age to the other, but not everything. It's usually reverting some of your cities down to towns. Towns are like a form of cities that require a lot less hands-on management. So in previous Civ games, every settlement that you made was a new city, and every city had production, and you had to manage them all. Towns, you kind of just like grow the town over time and let it do its thing, and you worry about and you only have a handful of cities that you're managing. So that's great from a decision space. So the ages mechanic is really good. That kind of ties in with the victory point or the victory conditions. So again, old Civ, you have these very specific victory conditions from the start of the game, like here's what I'm aiming for. With Civ 7, the victory conditions are like each age has kind of its own goals that you're trying to achieve in the different categories. So you can pursue an economic legacy, you can pursue a military or a cultural legacy or a scientific legacy, right? And within each age, you can pursue as much or as little of those things as you want to. And there's like kind of like quests that you're trying to fulfill in each tree. And you're not going to be able to do all of them, right? Because that would be kind of insane. You really have to pick like one to focus on and one as a backup, and then try to do what you can with the other ones. But what that does is that succeeding in the different legacy paths that they have kind of sets you up with bonuses for the next age. Like they give you kind of a head start and special abilities that you can pick, which again is very nice. And then once you get to the modern age, that's where you get your traditional Civ victory conditions. Like, if you want to win with military, you have to test an atomic bomb basically to show like the other powers in the world that you have like this ultimate military weapon. And that's how you win from a military standpoint. Or like if you want to do a scientific victory, you have to launch the first space flight in world history. Like that's kind of what you're going for. The other thing that is a really huge improvement is the introduction of commanders to your military. So previous civs, every unit is its own thing, and you have to move each unit around, every turn. You can set up like movement scripts for them, like to follow certain paths if you want them to go to places that'll take multiple turns to get there. But you're micromanaging your military. And again, as you get into the mid to late game in previous Civ games, that's a lot of units that you're managing, because you might easily have a dozen, 24 military units that you're clicking around the map, and that gets really tiresome, especially if you're not actually like fighting somebody. If you're just kind of having the patrol or man stations or that kind of thing. The commander is kind of like a special unit that you can get, and they have them for armies. You can also get them for navies and for air fleets as well as the game progresses. And what the commander does is you have the ability to kind of pack in units on the commander, and then you can just march your whole army across the map with this commander. So instead of having to micromanage each unit, you can basically like create a squad and then just have to control the commander and take them where you need to. So that's a great quality of life feature. And then once you get to an area where you're like, oh, I gotta fight somebody now, the commander can kind of like barf the units out onto the map around him and kind of like deploy all of them with the touch of one button, which is really great. And then the commander also has like tactics that you can use, so that like if you have like one space that you're attacking and you want to concentrate all of your attacks on that space, instead of having to like click each unit and have them all attack that space, you can have your commander say, oh, like have all ranged units that this commander is in their command radius, have them attack this one space, and they get a bonus when the commander tells them to do it as well. And finally, like the other great commander thing. So again, previous games, every unit got separate experience points when they did something, and you would level them up, and then the units would gain new abilities and stuff like that. Civ 7, the commander is the only unit that gains experience, and once you level up the commander, it has like a skill tree, like a multiple skill trees. So you can really customize like how that commander operates and what things you want to specialize them in, which is very cool, because you can have like one commander that is like your assault guy, and you can have another commander that is really good at like maneuvering across difficult terrain so that you can get them from one end of the map to the other really quickly. And it just kind of gives you more control over like how the game is played. So military was something I hated doing in previous Civilization games. I fucking love doing it in Civ 7. Like the first game that I played, when we got to the modern age, I aggressively went after like one of the civilizations who was really struggling because they had a lot of resources that I wanted. So I basically just went in and like stormed through their cities and essentially wiped them out. And he had alliances with some of the other civs in the game that did not like that I did that. So they all declared war on me, which was not very fun. And then Ben Franklin came to my aid, and we formed an alliance against these other civilizations. And we basically had like a world war where I was contesting like a war on multiple fronts. Like I was defending my own settlements from the west, but I was also on this continent on the east and trying to drive into settlements that Machiavelli had, and like managing all that stuff, and also having like a couple naval fleets attacking from the coast, like bombarding cities that were on the coastline and stuff like that. And just managing that was really fucking fun, like in a way that I never had fun doing military conflicts like that in Civilization 6. Like it was always painful to do military in Civ 6, but it was so fun. Just again, having the commanders, being able to move units around easily. You can also reinforce commanders. So like you can take a unit that's on the other side of the map and say, go reinforce that commander. And it takes them offline for like, 5 or 6 turns. Right. But then they can show up for that commander as well. So that you can kind of keep the war going on one front. So that stuff is very fun. It still has all the normal Civ stuff that you'd expect. Like you have your wonders that you can build. You have your special buildings. But yeah, I'm having a fucking ton of fun. Like people that are kind of poo-pooing this, I'm not sure what they're talking about. And every Civ game has this. Like every Civ game that comes out, like you're gonna have people that really like it, and some people that really just don't like it because it's a deviation from how the other one's played. So I kind of get that. The UI thing, when like before the game came out, I will absolutely say like, oh, this UI kind of looks gross. It looks basic. It looks kind of like a mobile game UI. Like that really, like it didn't look attractive. In practice, it's fine. Like it's just hyper minimalist. Like that's the biggest problem with it. The problem that I do have with the UI is that they didn't incorporate like tooltips, which is kind of weird. So like you might like let's say like you have these independent settlements that you find as you're going through the game and you befriend them. And when you become their suzerain, which is one of the things you can do in the game, they'll give you like a bonus. And like one of the bonuses might be a unique unit. And so like when they're like, hey, you can get this unique unit, normally you'd be able to hover over the name of that unit in the little pop-up that comes up there, and it would tell you what the unit does. And that shit's not in there. That's really annoying because then you have to like back out, go into the Civilopedia, look up the unit name, and try to figure out like what it is before you make that decision. So it would be nice if they put tooltips in there that so you can easily see what things do at a glance without having to go into the encyclopedia that's in the game. I'm sure that'll get added later, but it's definitely a miss as far as something that should have been in the game to begin with. Some people don't like the art style. It's definitely not as colorful and cartoonish as Civ 6 was. Like, not that Civ 6 was a cartoony looking game, but it definitely has like more exaggerated features and is definitely much more saturated color wise. This one does pare things back a little bit. Again, that's to taste. Like, not everyone's gonna like that, obviously. It's fine for me. It doesn't really bother me at all. Some people don't like the fact that they added like narrative events in the game, which really just boil down to, hey, do you want this bonus, or hey, do you want this bonus? The narrative text is just for flavor. Again, it's very easy to ignore, like because you're literally just picking, what bonus do you want, because it doesn't have any bearing on how the Civ goes out. But yeah, I'm fucking loving Civilization 7. Like, I'm having a really good time playing it so far.
It's you've described this game, and it's very, it feels like it's very, you're using a lot of brain power, and you make it sound very interesting. I've been playing the big titty ninja girl in Street Fighter that not quite on the same level.
That takes its own level of strategy and execution.
It takes its own level of mental stack. Yes, yeah. Yes. To focus on your opponent and not the big titty ninja girls, big titties. No, that sounds cool. I wish I got into these games, man. I wish I got into these Civilization games.
Well, here's the fucking rules about it. Like, so you can't do this yet, but they did say that they were going to add this very soon. The other kind of benefit of the age system is that you can, like, eventually you'll be able to, like, if you just want to play the Antiquity Age and have that be your whole game, you can. And it'll literally be like a third of the length of a normal game of Civ. Because that's one of the things that is like a barrier to entry for Civilization, is that to play a full campaign, like my first campaign took 15 hours. Like it's a long game to play through just a single game like that. And they specifically said in the development, because I watched a lot of the development videos for it, that like I want to say like something like 80% of Civ 6 players never even finished like a whole campaign, which like to them is kind of an issue, right? Like you're making this game, you want people to actually, experience it the full way. Like, it's no fun if people just pay for 6 hours and, bounce off. So that's why they said that's one of the reasons that they moved to the age system, is because they want to give people who might not be able to be in there for the long haul a chance to kind of experience, like a full arc, because like the way that the ages do end, and because like each age also, or at least the first two ages, have like a crisis event that happens where, like a world, something that affects the world will happen, and you have to kind of deal with that. Other games have done this before as well. It's not uncommon in these kind of 4X games to have like world crises that break out. So that's like one thing you can do that you have to mitigate as you get late in age. And then the other thing that's cool is that like the length of the age differs, because the more players in the game achieve those legacy objectives, the more the game like speeds up essentially. Like the more objectives are getting completed, the faster the age will end. But if for some reason players are having a tough time making that happen, then it'll be lengthened. I will say that like I've only played 6 and 7. Like I never played any of the older ones. 6 was a really difficult game to kind of wrap your head around as a newbie, because there's a lot of concepts and a lot of like things that it's not very clear how they work. Like even to this day, I've won plenty of games in Civ 6 like with a cultural victory. I still could not explain to you mathematically how to make a cultural victory work. Like I just know the things I have to do, but I can't tell you like how the calculations are done behind the scenes to make it make sense. I can explain to you in Civ 7, like it's very clear the things you have to do in Civilization 7 in order to win and to achieve your objectives. Like it's laid out in a much more clear fashion. And so I think if you're a newbie and you've ever been interested in Civ, this is probably the best one to jump into, because it's the one that's the most straightforward and the most clear about how the game works and what you're supposed to do in order to be successful playing it.
Okay, I tried 6, man, and the art style fooled me. I'm like, oh, look at this. This looks like a kid game. I got this, right? And I'm too dumb for those games.
Well, look, seven. I mean, it'll probably follow the same track as all of the other Civ games, and by the time the first expansion comes out in a couple of years, it'll probably be down to like $20. So maybe that'll be the time to check it out.
That'll be when I jump in.
Yeah, that'll be the time to check it out. But again, like if you like these type of games, or if you've ever been curious, I think it's great. Some people don't agree, and I think that's cool. Like again, I think it's a great thing to have people who vehemently feel to the extremes about a game, across the board. I think that's good for gaming. I think it's good. And again, if you don't like 7, 6 is still there. 5 is still popular. 4 still weirdly has a very large community that plays it for some reason. So there are certainly other games in the series.
It's because Baba Yetu fucks. That's it. 4 has the best opening theme, bar none.
Also has Leonard Nimoy, but this one has Gwendolyn Christie, so also not too bad. They always get good narrators. That's one hallmark of Civ.
Yeah, that's true.
Always get good narrators. Carrie, before we take a break, what are you doing this Sunday?
Another show for me to plug. This weekend, I will be participating in a big ass charity stream to help benefit wildfire relief for Los Angeles. So this Sunday, February 16th, from 3 p.m. through midnight Eastern or noon to 9 Pacific, my band Byscore will be participating in what we are calling Fairy Fountain Hearts for LA, which is a co-stream effort between Ongaku Overdrive and Zeldathon. So this is a big time charity stream with a lot of homies, mostly based on the West Coast, many based out of the Los Angeles area. So obviously everybody heard about these incredible wildfires that happened in Los Angeles last month. I feel like a lot of people who are not from California, it's difficult to grasp like really how bad these fires were. I feel like a lot of people outside of California just like hear about wildfires in California and they're like, oh, it's just another fire, right? And it's like you have to really understand that this one in particular was a fire basically the size of Manhattan that happened in a county that itself is more populated than the entire state of Maryland. Like this was devastating.
Not just the entire state of Maryland. LA County is more populated than literally the bottom 40 states in America individually. So
yeah,
Jesus.
It's intense. So most past big California wildfires have not taken place in such densely populated areas. So you have a lot of very average people who have lost their entire livelihoods because of these fires. So we're doing what we can to help. We're doing a stream. We're trying to raise a few $1,000 to go into wildfire relief funds. So again, this is this Sunday, the 16th, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going on at about 8:30, give or take, Eastern. But be sure to tune in throughout the day. A lot of really talented homies. Family Jewels is, I believe, going to be the last performer on the agenda. My very good friend Lacey Johnson is also performing. The Last Seahorse, Ro Panaganti and Allison Martin will be performing. The Icarus Kid, Ian Martin, Steven Strums, one of my favorite sleep paralysis demons. That's a whole other story. He's one half of the Super Guitar Bros, but his solo stuff is also fantastic. So just a lot of really good video game music happening this Sunday, all for a good cause. We have a couple donation incentives planned for our set, including if you hit a certain threshold before our set, we will perform in matching Sonic the Hedgehog onesie pajamas. And if you hit a certain threshold by the end of our set, I think we're going to do what we call like send buy score to hell, which is we're going to both eat the last, not the last dab, the bomb, which is worse in many ways.
Fuck?
Yeah. And play one of our more difficult songs to wrap up the set. And then we've also got a bid war that'll be FF7 versus FF8 to choose which Final Fantasy song that we play on our set. So a lot of fun stuff, all for a good cause. So definitely tune into that. I will drop a link in the Discord as well. So please be sure to tune in. A lot of fun stuff on that set planned. But yeah, the folks in Los Angeles definitely need a lot of assistance, so we are doing what we can to help. So, and I want to say almost every performer on the show on Sunday is based on the West Coast as well. So,
yep. And again, densepixels.com/fans if you're not currently a member of the Discord. Very cool. We're going to take a quick break. When we do come back, we will have the news. So much lighter news week this week. And not as much to dig into, which is fine. We'll lead off with the bizarre, almost 24-hour outage of the PlayStation Network that we saw Friday into Saturday this past weekend. And Sony still hasn't talked about why this happened. So sometime on Friday, the PlayStation Network did go down. People started kind of freaking out because it stayed down. It finally came back up early Saturday morning. Sony said that they had resolved the issue at around midnight Pacific time going into Saturday. But kind of a big deal because not only was online play obviously impacted, but because of how the PlayStation 5 works, if you have a game that you own digitally, and you haven't done like the authentication check that the system does periodically on it, well, you just couldn't play that game because you were accessed to PlayStation servers. And here's the other fun part: if you buy if you have a PS5 that's digital only, like the new Slims or the Pro, and you buy the PlayStation 5 disk drive attachment, and you hadn't installed it yet, the first thing it has to do is it has to authenticate with the PlayStation Network. So even if you bought a new PlayStation 5 disk drive, you still cannot play physical games on the console either while the outage was down. Basically, PlayStation said they're going to be gifting everyone a 5-day extension to their PlayStation Plus subscription to compensate for the day of outage. Obviously, if you don't have a PlayStation Plus subscription, sorry about your luck, I suppose.
Dumb commenter in this story. Like, the first comment in this story is, "This is a misleading title. People who don't subscribe to PS Plus don't get anything."
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, but they still couldn't play their games. Like they were still impacted by the fact that the network was down. Because even if you're not subscribed, the console still needs to authenticate the license. So
hey man, them's the breaks. I guess that's what the big corporation wants you to realize, man. Stupid ass corporations. So, and they're not telling us. They're not telling anybody why they were down. Like this, they have a history of
Well, I was gonna
being
say,
attacked.
I know the great PlayStation outage of 2012 was 13 years ago at this point, but I feel like still because of that, like Sony should be the ones going out of their way to be as front facing,
as transparent as
can.
possible.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, this is what happened. We were down because somebody was asleep at the wheel. You lie to me. Lie to me. What am I gonna do? Lie to me. And you really want to make it up to me? Give me a month.
Yeah.
So look, we're back. But hey, just a great reminder of the world in which we live. A great reminder that you don't actually own any of the digital media that you buy, for the most part, unless you buy it from like GOG or something like that. And that we are all at the whims of well-functioning network infrastructures to be able to do the things that we love. So just food for thought out there for people. The worst person you know just made a great point. There's an interview with Take-Two Interactive's CEO Strauss Zelnick with GameIndustry.biz, where he talked about they asked him about AI basically because to their credit, Take-Two is not one of the companies that has outwardly made a big fucking stink about using AI in their development and things like that.
Yeah.
And Strauss Zelnick, maybe with a surprising response to this, basically saying, quote, "Machine learning, machines don't learn. Those are convenient ways to explain to human beings what looks like magic. The bottom line is that these are digital tools, and we've used digital tools forever. I have no doubt that what is considered AI today will help make our business more efficient and help us do better work, but it's not going to reduce employment in our sector." And he then goes on to talk about how, actually, like, the history of digital technology is that technology usually increases employment, increases productivity, increases GDP, and he thinks that is what is going to happen with AI. But he also said that it's important that AI, quote, "does not infringe on other people's intellectual property by poaching their learning by large language models." And said, we're not going to do that.
Just said, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
And then saying if we couldn't protect that, we wouldn't be able to protect our own IP. So, yeah.
I gotta say, it is. I mean, I don't trust Strauss Zelnick further than I can throw his weirdly chiseled, like 60-year-old body. But it is refreshing to not see a CEO like feel the need to just like basically like suck the dick of investors who are always very stupid and just want to hear like the big buzzwords that they hear going around in the news and want to know that your company is like, on the cutting edge and wanting to back those tools. Like, it's from what it sounds like to me is that Strauss is like, yeah, like we'll use AI stuff where it makes sense to do it, but like we're not gonna like throw in completely behind this, and we still need people to actually do creative works
to do the creative work, right? I mean, I think of how it was Square Enix that was using AI to help match mouths in cutscenes to different language voices, which is, I think, the perfect use of AI, right? Like, that reduces the amount of time spent animating, but still requires an animator, still requires someone to go in and check that work, but speeds up the overall process. It's not taking away
allows you to localize
job.
your game in more regions, basically.
Yeah,
and still have
exactly.
the experience be smooth. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly an appropriate use of AI, and that's what you want it used for. And I think it's also, as always, important to separate, artificial intelligence as a tool from like Gen AI bullshit. Because like there's a lot of artificial intelligence and like, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, that has been used for very good things, like being able to detect cancer in cases where they had gone undetected previously and stuff like that. There's a lot of very, very good, net positive uses for AI in the world, but the generative AI slop that so many tech companies have just gone all in on is bullshit. And I can't wait for that trend to completely burst. So
this guy's 67.
Okay.
Good on you, buddy.
real Vince McMahon genes going on over there.
Yeah, man. And yeah, he is right. And I hate having to say that about some suit, some corporate suit. But look, Jay and I used to have these conversations about AI and he was like, but bro, you can do all this and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but like he has that type of brain, and I have a slightly more creative brain, and I'm more of the I have no problem using AI. I have no problem in people using it as long as you use it as a tool, right? But like, don't use it as a crutch. And I think and like you said, Carrie, with generative AI that just pulls nonsense from, everywhere it can find to make some weird pastiche. Be a little more, just to be more creative.
Use your
That's
fucking
all.
brain. Use your brain. Just, I don't know, use your brain. If you can't write an email without generative AI, you're dumb. That,
I think it doesn't help that either that AI has become this like catch-all term that doesn't really mean what people think.
It doesn't mean
think
anything.
It means. Like it means a lot of things, and people kind of lump it into the same bucket. When, to your point, like generative stuff is much different than, tools that are being used by developers for animation, like you talked about, or things that are, being done by NVIDIA, for example, to do like frame generation in their GPUs and things of that nature. Like those are very different things that have very different use cases, but they all get kind of folded into the same definition. And I do wish
also worth noting, and I saw this come across my feed earlier today, a brand new study at Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon University has found that humans that increasingly rely on generative AI in their work are using less critical thinking, which is actually resulting in the deterioration of cognitive faculties.
Yeah.
Like, it's this key irony of automation, which is that by mechanizing routine tasks and leaving exception handling to the human user, you are actually depriving humans of the routine opportunities to practice judgment and strengthen cognitive musculature, which then leaves them atrophied and unprepared when the exceptions do arise. So you basically using generative AI essentially makes you worse at your job. Like...
Yeah, and then we'll all be floating around in them Wall-E chairs, man.
Yeah, pick your dystopian sci-fi future. There's plenty out there to choose from. So.
Yep.
So yeah, like I said, probably one of the last times you'll ever hear me say this on the show. Good on you, Strauss Zelnick. I'm sure you will give us something in weeks' time to yell at you about. So we got that to look forward to. Again, speaking of developers and publishers doing things that are remarkably pro-consumer out of nowhere. So, Football Manager 25 is not a big deal in the United States. It is a huge deal around the world. This is the annual...
Globally, it's a huge game.
Yeah, this is the annual football management game that comes out where it's not FIFA where you play the games. It is literally like a simulator where you manage the club and basically do all the stuff but play the games on the pitch. Like the computer plays those games for you in fast time and you do all the behind the scenes shit. It's a wildly popular game across the world. And I played a little Football Manager. I like it. It's not something I'm going to sit there and play for like fucking hundreds of hours like some people do. The game comes out every year, as you'd expect from a sports franchise. And after Football Manager 24 came out last year, They said, hey, the developers said, who's Sports Interactive, and the game's published by Sega, said, hey, we're going to we need to basically rebuild the engine of the game from the ground up because the engine that we're using is massively outdated. We need to modernize this for this new generation. It's going to be a huge technical, Football Manager 25 is going to be a huge technical advancement, visual advancements. This is going to be the new engine that we build the game on later. We're going to get better UI, better match day stuff. We're going to add women's soccer to the game. But Sports Interactive is not a large team, and the scope of the project quickly got out of control to the point where they delayed the game a couple months ago, and were kind of radio silent, and fans of the game were kind of getting squirrely. And they announced last week, I should say, that they are actually going to cancel Football Manager 25 and instead focus on Football Manager 26. Basically, this is the quote from the developer. Due to a variety of challenges that we've been open about to date and many more unforeseen, we currently haven't achieved what we set out to do in enough areas of the game, despite the phenomenal efforts of our team. Each decision to delay the release was made with the aim of getting the game closer to the desired level, but as we approached critical milestones at the turn of the year, it became unmistakably clear that we would not achieve the standard required, even with the adjusted timeline. So basically, they are going to skip this year, and they will release Football Manager 26, which will have all these new bells and whistles that they're incorporating. Basically, them saying, hey, we're not going to put out a busted product that you guys are going to hate, because it's gonna damage your opinion of us. It's gonna damage the brand. Instead, we're just gonna continue working towards next year's game, and we hope that you will enjoy that when it comes out. Can you imagine EA ever?
Don't even finish it.
No, they would never. They would never. EA would never. EA would never.
They did it once, and they had to do it kicking and screaming, if you recall, when that demo for NBA Live 11 came out.
Yep, I do remember that. Yeah, I was going to say they did do it once, but not exactly willingly.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's
what you want.
This is what you want. I wish more companies would. I mean, they're not, because we keep consuming, but I wish some of these sports games would, as bad as that AEW Fight Forever game was, it kind of had the right idea of, okay, this is a platform that we're going to consistently update for 2 years, right? And then every other year, a brand new version with new bells and whistles and stuff like that comes out, because you can you need time to kind of think of new ideas, right? These games already look pretty damn good, so there's not much iteration on that front that you can have in 1 year's time. Yeah, I would love for more games to do this, to all these games that have yearly releases. I mean, look what it did for Assassin's Creed when they took a break. They came back, revamped, and then they got greedy again. It was like, oh, hey, all right, here we go. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's a bad business model, but like RGG Studios, they are able to crank out games at not a yearly clip, but at a steady rate, because one, they build an engine, they build a world, and they recycle that world and just kind of add tweaks to it and refine it. And yeah, I wish more games did this. Just to kind of see.
And again, from the sports standpoint, I mean, we also saw a recent example this few years ago. If you guys recall, WWE 2K20 came out, was a fucking train wreck. One of the buggiest, worst games that I can recall releasing in recent years. They took off 2K21, and they're like, we've got too much work to do. We've got too much stuff to build. And then 2K22 came out and was widely, critically loved by the fans. They really made good on that promise. And I understand it, like, and I get it. Like, from a publisher standpoint, it has to be very difficult to look at that and say, you know, why would we not want to, even if it's not going to be the best product it could be, why would we not want to just, you know, we don't want to give up a whole year's worth of, you know, new game income that comes from that. But like something like FIFA, I think in this day and age, FIFA could easily go to an every other year cadence, because the thing that makes them money is Ultimate Team. Ultimate Team makes them way more money than the sales of the game ever could. And so if you just keep that, like the newest FIFA Ultimate Team updated throughout that whole 2-year cycle, and add like new modes to it and stuff like that, like you can add small things to the game, like without doing a complete overhaul, I guarantee you that not only would you still probably see just about the same amount of revenue coming in, but you would get so much more goodwill and so much more appreciation from the players, because you'd have so many fewer people coming out there being like, "Oh, I feel like I'm just playing the same game every single year." Like I've taken to, like, the few sports games that I do buy. Usually, like, I'll play I'll do a several year gap in between purchasing them, and it really does feel like a significant upgrade when you go from like the 2021 version to the 2024 version, because you've skipped 3 years worth of very small incremental upgrades, and you got that all in one package. So, and again, this is why it's a problem having game companies that are publicly traded. Like privately owned companies don't have to worry about shareholders. And to this point, like, kudos, I think you have to give kudos to Sega as well. Sega is a publicly traded company in Japan, and I would assume that the studio still had Sega's backing to do this, because I'm sure if Sega was like, "No, we got to put the game out, you guys got to figure this shit out," they would have done it, and it would have been bad, but you know, but that would have hurt Sega in the long term. I applaud Sega for having the foresight to be like, "Hey, let's not release a shitty game and tarnish the this brand that is very successful. Let's let them take the extra year." Trust me, people will still buy Football Manager 24. Like that's one of those like evergreen games that sells year round. It goes on sale all the time. The people that like it really like it. It's a game that a lot of people get pulled into. They're going to be just fine, and I think they'll be happier at the end of the day, because you'll have a lot of people that will really be looking forward to this new game, and hopefully they can deliver on the things that they promised with the new edition. I think it's a good lesson publishers should learn. They won't, but I think they should. I think they should learn that lesson.
Yeah, it's amazing how publishers take literally every wrong lesson from every good or bad idea that is thrown out there.
Right.
Like, they just take every wrong lesson from it, and it's wild.
Yep. Finally, in the news, the ESA is coming back with a brand new event. I need some opinions from the rest of the panel here. Is it icon or is it icon or econ?
Econ. I'm reading that as econ.
That's right.
They're probably going to call it icon, but let's be real. It looks like icon.
But yeah, it is econ.
Econ.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not Hawaii, right?
That's fair.
Hawaii.
That's fair. It was the we. Yes, all correct things. So good. Okay.
Also,
good. I think
God,
we definitively.
if this isn't the most vague marketing jargon bullshit I have ever seen, and I should know because I work as a marketing.
I'm gonna read the quotes. So this is the Interactive Innovation Conference that is going to be held by the ESA. A quote thought leader summit designed to connect visionaries, thought leaders, and innovators from across industries to harness the power of interactive entertainment. Yes, very much marketing bullshit.
Marketing bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. It's well-crafted marketing bullshit, but it is a series of buzzwords that doesn't mean fucking anything.
No. I mean, from high glance, it feels like this is going to be what E3 originally was, which is an industry trade show that is not open to the public. That is just, for industry, like provide a central gathering for all the bigwigs in the industry to get together, to talk to one another and things of that nature. So like they've already announced that like Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, Amazon Games, Disney, EA, Epic Games, Square, Take-Two, Ubisoft, and Warner Brothers, among others, are going to be there. Cool.
How many years? How many years before it just devolves
it,
into the new E3?
it depends. Like if they're truly, if they truly are intending this to be like a like an industry summit of sorts, right? That's not something that has to be public facing. Like you like I would not be at all surprised if nothing was broadcast from this. Unless they wanted to make it like a GDC sort of thing where they have panels that they then, release for public consumption later. That's about like development shit or publishing shit. I mean, I don't know that I'd find too much interest in a publishing panel, to be quite honest. Like the GDC talks are good because learning, like game developers talking about the stuff they do is actually interesting.
Yeah.
For some of us.
Yeah, I don't want to hear a bunch of rich people talk about money. Money. Like, all right, get the fuck out of here.
Right,
man.
but I hope because here's the thing, like the reason the E3 died is because we don't need E3 anymore. Like companies have learned direct marketing is the way to reach consumers. It's easier than it ever was before with YouTube and social media and all this other stuff. Like it's very easy to craft your message and get it out there. And for those big events, we have Jeff Keighley doing the work 3 times a year to bring us Summer Game Fest, Gamescom, and the Game Awards, and that's all we fucking need as consumers. I feel.
You know what? You've convinced me. I think you're right. I think I had plus these things are meant to be boring, guys. Like I go to some of these for my job, and the only reason I go is because I get to go to another state on someone else's dime. and I have to sit through a couple of presentations in order to do it. But like it's a mini like a little vacation for my family. Well, they don't pay for my family to come, but like I can bring my family with me, and it's we get to go to Atlanta or Orlando or San Diego or whatever. You know what I mean? And they're boring. It's work. So yeah, let's let this happen, and maybe we'll get better ideas than. Well, Dragon Age failed because it wasn't a live service game.
Jesus Christ!
So we should make it a live service game.
It's like, not that. Look, that's. I mean, we talked about that last week. Can I tell you? I fucking love that. Literally days after Andrew Wilson came out and was like, "Hey, like this game probably wouldn't like no one's really into single player RPGs anymore. Like Dragon Age should have been live service, would have been more successful. Like the most banal." Niche, like fucking hardcore single player RPG imaginable comes out days later. I'm talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That game comes out days later and literally, like on launch day, sells 1 million copies, has like 260,000 concurrent players on Steam, and is receiving widespread praise across the industry. I can think of no bigger fuck you to Andrew Wilson than that game being more successful than Dragon Age, despite the fact that it's merely a single player RPG that doesn't have a live service attached to it. So, man, when is EA just going to become the fucking FIFA Madden company? I feel like we're inevitably headed there at some point, but we'll see. We'll take one more quick break, and then when we come back, we will have the post office. So as usual, if you join our Discord, densepixels.com/fans, you can cruise on into the Dense Pixels post office and ask us questions that we will answer on the show. Have a couple to pull back from last week first from T-Wash, who's going to show up a couple times this week. What boss almost drove you insane trying to beat them?
I don't know if you guys have played Sifu.
I have not.
But it's a roguelite, like beat 'em up, and the bosses are very, very challenging. And then the last boss is just the last boss, but you acquire certain skills and stuff that you bring through each run and stuff like that. But when you get to the last boss, no, none of it. You can't like your main ability to like slow down times to try and no, you can't. So the Sifu bosses are all pretty challenging. The last one is I haven't beaten the game because like I'm at the point in my life where, especially right now, especially like where we are right now, I'm playing games for escapism and enjoyment. I am not bashing my head against the wall. I'm not throwing controllers, and that game will make you do it.
As a kid, the first time I got to the Kraken in Golden Sun was rough. Because I had saved at an inopportune time and I was a little underleveled. And I had not yet figured out that the Kraken is very weak to sleep. So yeah, that was like I was 11 years old and having a very bad time. More recently, probably Millennia. Yeah, that took a while. I did it twice because I was playing that game co-op. So I beat Millennia twice. Still did not beat Elden Ring. Beat Millennia twice. Didn't finish Elden Ring though. I got straight up mollywopped by Malekith and decided that was it for me. Like I was like, nah, I'm done. Then I got divorced and moved 3,000 miles, and that was the end of that particular co-op campaign. So if anybody who's playing on PC and wants to help me finish Elden Ring, please let me know. I would actually like to finish that game, but I can't. There ain't no fucking way I'm gonna be able to do that shit by myself. So
I'm checking my lists just to make sure that I'm not missing anything obvious before I think of the one that springs to mind recently. So here's the thing with me, right? So like I will normally run face first into any bosses that a game has to encounter, and I'll normally overcome them, no problem. Regardless of how many times I have to try. The exception to this is the final boss, because if I know that I'm right at the end of the game, and I feel that I'm in a position where I either have to do a shitload of grinding, or the final boss is just like outrageously hard, and it's going to take me like 3 hours to overcome that specific hurdle. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to bounce. I'm going to watch the end of the game on YouTube and leave with the satisfaction of having beat the game up until this final hurdle. The last game that I can recall doing this with was Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. That was the last one that I got to the end boss, and for some reason, I don't know why. Wasn't it like the fucking polar bear or whatever it was?
Yep.
Yeah, that fucking polar bear and his fucking
fuck ass.
His fucking 3 phases, which I thought based on previous Donkey Kong countries that I'd played that it would only be a 2-phase boss fight. I was wrong. I finally it took me a very long time to overcome the 2 phases, and I was like, cool, we're done. And he's like, no,
Nah.
we've got one more phase for you, buddy. And I was just like, you know what? I am done. I have had enough. I don't feel like learning what I need to overcome this stupid last boss. And so I'm finished. I am very done. And again, like I've been talking about Lost Crown because I just beat that last or 2 weekends ago. Fantastic boss fights. Made me want to like every time I fell in a boss fight in Lost Crown, it made me want to just get right back up and go back in there, because that's how satisfying the gameplay and how fair the boss fights felt. And that's the biggest thing that'll get me out. Like if the boss feels unfair, I'm not gonna put up with this. I've got better things to do with my time. That is one thing that the Metroidvanias often do. The Souls games do this in spades. Like, even though the bosses are hard, they are still fair. Oh, actually, you know what? Here's one I did beat. The fucking final boss in Metroid Dread. I swear to God, it took me 20 tries to beat that fucking asshole. What a piece of shit. What a piece of shit. But I kept going back because, like I said, I was having a good time, even though I was getting maddeningly frustrated. So, C. Kent asks, what is the wildest thing you ever heard a coworker say to another person? I once heard a coworker tell another coworker who was in remission that the girl at her gym has cancer and they would be a good couple. Yeah, some people don't think before they talk.
I used to work at the Patapsco wastewater treatment facility, and it's a bunch of blue collar guys sitting in trucks waiting for shit to happen so that they can go fix it. And I remember this one guy, Cliff. I don't know how we got on the race relations. This white guy from Baltimore, right, from South Baltimore, right, and I don't know what we were talking about. We were talking about women because, like, that's what, like, insecure heterosexual straight males do when they're around each other to prove that they're straight. They tell, we objectify women and shit. And someone had mentioned something about a black woman that they found attractive. And he was this black guy who said it. He was like, Cliff, you don't know nothing about that. And he was like, Mike, they're all pink on the inside.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! I had a coworker that said the same fucking thing many years ago to me. Holy shit! Incredible!
I was like, all right, bro. All right.
Incredible. Oh my god!
So yeah, there you go. But he also said he also said, if there's grass on the field, play ball. Like, all right, bro. All right, let's calm down, yo.
Oh my lord.
I can't think of any extreme HR violations or anything like that.
Yeah, I can't either because I work with like responsible adults who are fucking wilding out here.
So here's what I will say. Here's what I will say is I used to work for a subsidiary of Diamond Comic Distributors, which you may have heard recently is in the news because they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy last month, which to me came as no fucking surprise because this is a company that has run on software from like the early 90s, refused to modernize, and I told them point blank in my fucking exit interview that if they do not modernize, that they will fail. They didn't modernize, and now they're failing. Anyway, this is a company that like owes like millions and millions and millions of dollars to Penguin Random House and Bandai and WizKids and McFarlane and Disney and Hasbro and all sorts of folks right now. So they're kind of fucked. But they also severely underplayed a lot of their employees, myself included. I'm happy to go on record to say that I, as an individual with a master's degree, maxed out my salary with them at about $34,000 when I was working with them. I worked for them for 6 years. And that's how much they felt to pay someone with a master's degree. Now, I had a coworker there who was paid even less than I was paid. And I remember hearing that he had negotiated for like a higher salary. Now, he was ex-military, and he was told straight up by one of the higher ups in the company that they didn't feel like they needed to pay him anything additional because he received benefits from the VA's office. So why should they have to pay him anything more when he gets benefits elsewhere?
Cool. Oh.
Anyway, fuck Diamond, fuck Steve Jeppy, and I hope the entire business goes under. Fuck them. Fuck them entirely. They deserve this entirely. They had so many opportunities to get with the times. They had so many opportunities to treat their employees better, to treat their vendors better, to treat their publishers better. The thing about Diamond is Steve Jeppy and the folks higher up at Diamond locked all of these major comic publishers like DC and Marvel and IDW and Dark Horse into lengthy, long-term exclusive contracts back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, like locked them into like 20-year exclusive distribution deals through Diamond. And then then Diamond didn't do anything to make any of those folks want to renew those contracts after they were up. So they all left for places like, Lunar and Penguin Random House and whatnot. They lost all of their big comic publishers and now they're going under. So, karma's a bitch, and I hope that entire fucking family gets what's coming to them, because boy howdy, they did not do anything to endear themselves to me when I was working there. Jesus fucking Christ.
Film Wanderer asks, what is y'all's all-time favorite year in gaming?
2017.
It's a good one.
I thought it was widely considered that 1998 was.
Yeah, I mean,
year.
it is hard to argue against that objection.
When did Mass Effect come out? Because Mass Effect came out
2007.
when?
Yeah.
2007.
Also a good
Mass
year.
Effect. Yeah, Mass Effect came out, but like I don't know what it was about 2007, but like a lot of new IP started coming out.
Yes,
in
Assassin's. I
2007?
have a list: Assassin's Creed, BioShock, Halo 3, Mass Effect, Super Mario Galaxy all came out in 2007.
I mean, that's a pretty strong year. And,
2001 also up there. Final Fantasy 10, GTA 3, Halo 1, Metal Gear 2, Melee all came out 2001. 98, as Micah referenced, Banjo-Kazooie, Half-Life, Metal Gear Solid, Pokemon Red and Blue in the US, and Ocarina of Time.
StarCraft.
Resident Evil 2.
Spyro. Yeah, 1998's up there for sure. Mario Party.
Yeah. 2015, Bloodborne, MGS5. What? Man, Metal Gear just keeps popping up on all these on all these lists. Witcher 3, Undertale, all 2015 games. Shovel Knight.
2017, I just remembered, was like Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, Mario Odyssey.
Yep.
Like, for me, it was like those three. That's like my trifecta in my brain. I was like, 2017 was good. Plenty of other stuff, obviously, that year as well.
PUBG, Cuphead, Resident Evil 7.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All came out in 2017. Yeah. There's a lot of good years. I think if you're just looking at impact on the industry, I think Mike is right. I think 98 is probably it. Cause again, Ocarina, Pokemon, Metal Gear, and Half-Life
GoldenEye
are four of literally the defining video games period ever of all time.
Yeah.
And they all came out in 1 year. And StarCraft also deserves to be in that conversation as well. So
absolutely.
I mean, it is difficult to,
and some some kind of cult fan favorites as well dropped that year. Like Grim Fandango came out in 1998. Panzer Dragoon Saga came out in 1998. Oddworld Abe's Exodus came out in 98. Xenogears came out in 98. You're
a fan of Tekken, because Tekken 3 came out, and that's the one that broke the mold. That's the one that put that series on the map.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
But if you're a young child, maybe 98 does not hold as much.
For me, 98 was really when I got into playing video games in general, because that's when I got a Game Boy Color and was got Pokemon Red and Link's Awakening. So yeah, that was a big one for me personally, for sure.
Yeah. And look, last year, no slouch either. Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2.
2 years ago now, 2023.
That's true. Yep. Street Fighter 6, Pikmin 4, Mario Wonder. Pretty good year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty good year. So, J-Man doesn't ask a question, wants to give Micah props. Micah's camera is outstanding. He looks like he's doing a reaction video to the podcast when 3 or more of you guys are on the screen. It's because Micah's the only one of us that uses an actual camera as his webcam, and not a webcam.
Yeah.
So
I'm using a Sony. I'm using a Sony A7 IV with a macro 2.8 f stop 50 millimeter prime macro lens for
Yeah.
all my toy photography. Get really up there, but like the 50 millimeter focal length is kind of similar to what the human eye sees.
mhm.
So, it blurs the background and keeps all this
how
nice and sharp.
how low can you get your f-stop on that lens?
Just 2.8 to 16.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This is my everyday shooting lens because I like to shoot like portraiture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
The
lenses are
the
really
real
fucking
cost,
expensive.
the real cost
Yeah,
of of
lenses
owning
are
a
real
camera.
expensive. Yeah, man. Like I want to do so many cool things and I got ideas for stuff, but I look at these prices for these lenses and they're like,
Dude,
"Hey, here's the cheap one
if
for
only
$2,000."
if
Like,
only you were in
nah,
the
I'm good.
Canon ecosystem. I have a bunch of lenses that I'm looking to unload. So unfortunate.
Yep, that's all right.
Cam asks, this one is mostly for Micah. What is one nice thing that you can say about Philadelphia now that they have successfully blown up the Death Star?
I tell you, I was rooting for the Eagles yesterday because I'm a hater and I don't want to see the Chiefs. I didn't want to see the Chiefs three-peat. I do have family on both sides who live in Philadelphia, and if I if they have to live there, they need something to believe in. Um, I will say that you know if there was a riot in Philadelphia, you'd never know because it just looks the way it does. And you know I could take solace in the fact that nobody who is on the Eagles is from Philadelphia. So Philadelphians didn't have anything to do with that win.
Well,
So there you go.
He also asked if you had to assign a petty moment in a video game to match Kendrick's "Say Drake" smile, what would it be?
Um, I don't know. Um, I don't know the ins and outs of Kojima leaving Konami,
Mm-hmm.
but I gotta figure Kojima is just like, hey Konami, I heard you like your games bad.
Trying to think of a moment like in a video game that kind of carries that energy. My
Yeah,
first
I
thought
don't.
did go to MGS, like at the very beginning of MGS3, when you're confronting Ocelot and he's not yet Revolver Ocelot because he uses like a semi-automatic and the gun jams on him, and then like after Snake gets the better of him, he basically like gives him a fucking lesson about why his gun jammed and how like he should use a revolver instead because of how he like uses his arm, and like, hey, like you're pretty good, but you could be even better if you stop being so flashy. And then, like, literally the next time, like, later in the game when you confront him, like, yeah, he's got revolvers now. And he's like, yeah, this is the coolest thing ever. Thank you for telling me this. I'm going to try to kill you still. But I really appreciate it.
yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any. It's a very unique flavor of petty. I do like it though. I'm a big fan. Big fan of any time that we get a new just like straight up image where you can send it to someone to just call them a pedophile. Big fan of that. Huge fan.
T-Wash asks, what genre or mixture of genre video game would you make? I always wanted to make a beat 'em up / fighting game.
I have for probably 10 years now been sitting on an idea of making like a visual novel inspired by the music video for the Backstreet Boys song The Call.
Mm-hmm.
I have it all laid out in my head. I just don't really know how to execute it. But yeah, I would really like to do that at some point because I'm very deep into boy band lore and I know exactly how I want to do this. I already have too much going on. I don't need to make my own video game when I'm already working on someone else's video game. But yeah, I would love to make a VN at some point.
Now that I have kind of really gotten into grand strategy video games, I want to see the Mass Effect universe somehow integrated into. It doesn't matter if it's like a 4X grand strategy or even like an RTS style game. I think would be really cool. But I think it is criminal that we are not going to be able to see like expanded takes on the Mass Effect universe because there's so much flavor and lore there to chew on that you could spin off into several different genres. So that's what I would probably make like a 4X Mass Effect game. And maybe that's your Turian War video game where like your humanity that's expanding out into the solar system and then you encounter the Turians, and you have to try to, still manage your humanity empire while fighting a war on those multiple fronts against them. So
that's kind of cool.
Or you could do the like rebuilding the galaxy after the Reaper threat has passed. Like you could pick it up from the end of Mass Effect 3, and work on like building out the galaxy, reconstructing the mass relays, that kind of shit. So,
to kind of piggyback off of T. Wash's idea, maybe like a beat 'em up battle royale type game.
Mm-hmm.
Where instead of, you're going around shooting people, you got to get up in people's face or make it like Battle Royale, the fucking movie. And
I hate to tell you that the game you're pitching actually existed and it got canceled because apparently it wasn't successful enough. It was called Rumbleverse. It was like a wrestling Battle Royale game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, I would have made it like that Battle Royale movie, where through the luck of the draw, you get a weapon, and it could be a knife, it could be a crossbow, it could be a paper fan, it could be a skillet. Like, who knows? But you got to go up and get in people's face. But I mean, if it fails, see, this is why I don't make video games. That's why I don't make video games. They already made the thing, and then it failed.
And it was good. Like, people were really pissed off that it went away, because it was a really fun game. So, finally, Mad Coco G asks, are stealth releases for new games worth it? Because as good as Hi-Fi Rush was, it killed, and then later resurrected, the studio at the same time. So I want to interject before we get into the stealth release question, because here's the thing about Hi-Fi Rush. According to Microsoft, Hi-Fi Rush was a massive success. Like, when the game came out, people were like, "Oh, like, could this possibly be successful?" Because you just dropped it on Game Pass, and you didn't sell it. And Microsoft themselves were like, "No, like, the game is exceeding our expectations that we had for it." So, Microsoft getting rid of Hi-Fi of Tango GameWorks was not because of Hi-Fi Rush; it was in spite of it. Which made the jettisoning Tango kind of a bizarre fucking choice on their part, because they had this game that according to them was successful, and won all kinds of awards, and then they got rid of the studio, and then like 2 weeks later, Matt Booty was talking to developers saying, we need to make the type of games that win awards. And I'm just like, you just did that, and then you fired them, you idiots. So I don't feel that is a that's a causal effect thing. I still think that for certain types of games. So here's the thing: for a stealth drop to be successful, number one, you got to have a good game. That's first and foremost. Like, the game has to be good, because the thing that's going to sell the game is not the stealth release, but the word of mouth that comes and the buzz that gets generated beyond that. And I don't think that it like, if you want just like a viral moment, like a way to capture a zeitgeist, it's hard unless you're like a big game with a ton of hype behind it. A stealth drop is still a great way to do that, because if you fucking put this game out there and you make sure that the right people get it in their hands and it's a good video game, it will do gangbusters, because that word of mouth will just permeate everything and it'll get people into it.
I think it needs to be a good game, but not so good that people believe in it. If that makes any sense, right? Like, it had, like, they knew that Hi-Fi Rush was a good game, but it's not an established IP.
Yep.
Right.
And to be fair, like, if it's one of those games that if they had previewed it before it came out, I guarantee you a lot of us would have been like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Just like looking at the art style, looking at kind of the whole vibe of the game. Like what was cool about it wouldn't have come through as effectively as playing the game immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta have something good. You gotta it's a tricky situation, because you gotta, like you said, have something that is good from a technical standpoint, something that's fun to play, but it's got to be from. I think it's most effective if it's from a bunch of people that aren't like huge names in the development space, to really kind of get their name out there. And you gotta have a publisher that's willing to kind of take a chance. And that's the biggest hurdle. People are making good games all the time, man. People, but having someone believe in you just enough, right? Because you don't want to overhype, right? Because like publishers will be like, well, this Dragon Age was it had the best rollout ever, and it only sold, X amount of copies, so it's another failure because it didn't have live service. All right. It's a delicate balance, but I think it can work. I think it is viable and I think it's, especially with something like Game Pass. And I don't know what their metrics are, like how they're able to determine what's a good game, or how it's exceeding expectations. But yeah, man, just the publisher is the big thing. You got to have something that they got to want to take a chance, and that's usually not what happens.
Or you can self-publish, like my wild off the wall. Well, my wild off the wall prediction. I think that when Silk Song does come out, it's just going to come out. Like when they announce the release date, that release date is going to be now.
Right. It's done,
and it's going to break the internet. Basically, when it happens. So, yep. So cool. Well, thank you guys very much for your questions. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the Discord at densepixels.com/fans, so that you can ask us questions at the post office that we'll answer on the show every week. We appreciate if you check us out wherever you find us. YouTube.com/densepixels. Subscribe there. If you use a podcatcher for your podcast, check out TNP Studios, where you can find us, the Nerd Apocalypse, Black on Black Cinema, and Look Forward. And if you really love what we do, just $5 a month, densepixels.com/premium to help support us and to get the full episode of Look Forward every single week. So thank you all very much for watching and listening. I'm back to go conquer more of the world. See ya.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.